especially after COVID, we've gone into a service industry that, for one, I think we have more training than we ever had before, but it's the will to want to learn. And I think just if most people learned, if you went into any of these trades and you just want to have that attitude of learning a little bit, you would go so far. It's not even compared.
Welcome to Blue Collar Bros, a home service podcast focused on scaling family business and discovering what differentiates the best of the best within the trades. We are your bros, the Yarbrough brothers. On the left, we have Will. On the right,
howdy,
Kolby. Center, me, Tucker. Our producer, Bryce, is also here with us. Today, we are joined by the paragon of technical excellence, the chief of customer interaction, the quintessence of quality and production management, our quality and production manager, Mr. Keith Hill. Keith, how are we doing today, sir?
Oh, pretty good.
I felt like there needs to be applause after that.
You know,
he worked in quintessence
and paragon. Yeah. That was off the fly. You know, it's I watch a little bit too much Pat McAfee, and he does the WWE intros, and so that's what I go for every time because the goal is to make everyone at the table smile and laugh and be like, "Oh my gosh, all right, here we go. This is it.
This is a big deal. I should have worn my suit."
I wasn't ready for a 10-point word.
Yeah, welcome to the main event.
Monday. The Blue Collar Bros.
Yeah.
So, Keith, you have been working with us. I have no memory prior to you working with us, actually, because you've been with us 18 years. And so I just turned 28. So you were I was 7 when you came to work with us.
I am not. I hate to tell people that I'm not that old.
Hey, that's wrong math. I was actually 10. I just wanted to poke that. Yeah. But so you've been with us for a long time. You've seen the evolution of not only just like the company of Yarbrough Sons and just actually becoming a company and not just a one-man shop and with helpers running around, but you've seen the change of the trades over the years, going from
in a big way
paper to technology. So let's go ahead and go 30,000 foot view, just perspective on your life in the trades, where the trades have gone since you've been with us, and we'll start there and just soft launch.
Yeah, I mean, do you want to start so I started off coming into this almost after high school. I went to a year of Votech and then came working here. I wanted to come here right after high school, but your dad had hired somebody else. and my buddy, from the time I was a junior, my buddy was always like, "Hey, come work at Yarbrough's. Hey, come work at Yarbrough's." So then I tried to come work at Yarbrough's. He was like, "Hey, yeah, we just hired somebody else." That guy did not last. But I must say, so you would have been better off if we could have said, "It's been 19 years."
Yeah, we would have.
18, but yeah, I said, well, I'll go to school for a little bit for it, and we'll try that out. And so just went to Wayne Payne, Votech, Mid-America, and did not like that. School was good because it taught you a lot of the basics, but people always go, would you go back to school? And yeah, it's going to teach you some of those fundamentals and make it a little bit easier to probably get your journeyman's license and stuff like that. But for the most part, I think just going out and working, I learned a lot more.
Mm-hmm. And it's one of those things too, where it's like, and I think I don't know if Votech was this way, back then, but if it, it's this way now, where it seems like for better or worse, Votech is very much more of a curriculum to push people into service rather than teaching like the holistic approach of the trade. Because that's one of the things that we struggle with a lot of times with getting kids out of Votech is they're prepared for a little bit of the service side, but not so much install and run and duct and building plenums and things like that. Was that how it was back then as well?
Yeah, definitely. I know it's kind of changed a little bit because some of the guys we've pulled out, they did more sheet metal stuff and stuff we didn't do. We didn't do too much. Besides learn the basics. A lot of it was we had high school kids, and I think I understand where the school system is going. Like, let's teach these kids some trades, and that's great. But what it comes down to is a high schooler. I think even if you're going into any kind of those schools, they don't know what they really want to do. So you're pushing kids to be in this school, to whereas I was just a little bit of an adult. I was still a high schooler. I mean, I was still just right out of high school, and So it did just that difference made a huge difference in my perspective of what I was doing, because I was trying to go for a career. I wanted a path to somewhere, to whereas a lot of those high schoolers were just there because it got them out of class.
Right. So, okay, so like when you went to school and it was maybe a little bit more service heavy, whenever you first started at Yarbroughs, what was your first role?
So yeah, when I first came here, I was doing just as install helper. We were doing, it's changed a lot. We were doing a lot more new construction back then, which was nice. I really liked the new construction. So we did new construction, and then we did change outs. We did some commercial work. We were all over the place, it seemed like. And back then it was almost, we had 2 install crews and 2 service techs, and that's it. And so you pretty much just got whatever job that came at you, which I guess that was probably a benefit. And maybe in some ways it's great that we've kind of changed that, because everybody's kind of more specific to what they're good at, which is great to hone in those skills. But what it comes down to back then is you got kind of a wide variety of, you had to do these things. Now, where we've honed in those skills, back then we were going kind of more flying by the seat of our pants. and so you had to learn things really new, and you'd get good at one thing, but then you'd have to go and start doing these other things. You're like, oh my goodness. But it was really great to have just that experience. And so,
Yeah, and saying we did more new construction, I think back then we did anything that would keep us busy.
oh, yeah. Well, I mean, here goes. So did we build, I'm trying to think of when we, did y'all's barn. I think we did right after I do believe right after I got hired, we did the barn at y'all's old house.
Yeah.
And we framed it, and we did electrical. I think we did some electrical over there, and we did all kinds of work over there.
Yeah.
And so we were framing and doing all kinds of stuff.
So one of the things that I want to jump back to a little bit was, you said, like, while you were still in high school, you wanted to come work here. Were you just a glutton for punishment, or did you know, like, the HVAC world was what you wanted to do, or what? Why was it that you wanted to come work at Yarbroughs, so early on?
Well, I mean, I was good at working with my hands. I wanted to do a couple of things. One, I was going to go into the military, but my dad said, you got to realize, a dad that has 2 kids that are in the military already, because my 2 older brothers were in the military. One was in Iraq, and I think my dad was going, the last thing I want is another kid in Iraq. My other brother was in Korea, and he goes, yeah, let's find something else besides the military for right now. I don't think he could handle 3 kids in the military. So he said, let's do something else. So I liked auto mechanics, and my dad said, I think we need to find something else. And it's probably true. I mean, I probably wouldn't have liked, I like working on cars, but I like that as a hobby, not as a career. And then I tried a year at aviation mechanic school, but that was terrifying. We watched a whole lot of videos of all kinds of planes crashing, and I went, this ain't for me. So
I'd rather the worst consequence be somebody's a little uncomfortable.
Yeah. So when I came here working, Derek was my journeyman, and he's kind of older, but he's my brother's age, and they, so we kind of hung out all the time when I was growing up, and he was always saying, you need to come work at Yarbroughs. You need to come work at Yarbroughs. And my dad said, yeah, that's probably a pretty good career, because you could do that, or you could do plumbing or electrical. My dad knew that the trades always had work, so he wasn't too worried about would I be able to find work, and he really wanted me to go do my own business, and I learned fast I didn't want to do that. So, because it's a lot of work. I mean, I've only, being here, it's really shown that the more you're here, the more you see how much it takes to actually run a whole business. And I think that's why a lot of businesses fail. It's a lot more work than what everybody thinks it is. They think it's going to be kind of a party, but coming here, it was pretty easy. Like, I want to go somewhere where, have the right kind of deal. I worked during high school at Chick-fil-A, and so it was pretty nice to have work where we could do. I had a Christian owner, and he was real nice at letting me off. In fact, one time we were we closed the mall down. The position in the mall, or the spot in the mall was moving, and so with it being closed, we all took a week off, and so a friend of mine said, "Hey, you want to go to Falls Creek?" And I said, "Sure." Well, during that week, my boss called and said, "Hey, we need Keith to come in on Saturday to help do some orientation stuff or whatever they were doing." I don't know. I missed it. But my mom said, "Fine, I'll go get him from Falls Creek." And he goes, "Oh, that's where he needs to be." Yeah. And same thing goes here, is I knew who Darren was and how his attitude with things are. And it was kind of like that, my boss over there. And so I've already known Darren and know how he handles a business. I think, well, I'd like to go there. So I came here and worked till I got my license, and then I actually left for 4 months because I don't know what it is in this field. It seems like you get your license, and then there's all kinds of opportunities that open up. And I say opportunities. There's all kinds of people that will come to you when you have a license. And so I had a guy that I knew, and he said, "Hey, yeah, come to work for me." And I was like, it's more money, and they were going to put me in just residential new construction install. And I was like, well, I'd like to do that. And like I said, we did things all over. You might be here or here. You're doing all kinds of different jobs. So turned around and I left for 4 months, and it did not end up being what I wanted to. In fact, I ended up doing the exact thing I didn't want to do, is commercial install, which I did not like commercial install.
That's a whole other animal.
Oh yeah. And so I called, Mac was our install manager at that time then. I called Mac and I said, "Hey, I'm not happy where I'm at. Can I come back?" And he said, "I don't know. Let me talk to Darren." And it wasn't, but I think by the end of the day, he called me back and said, "Yeah, we'll go ahead and come on back." And I was like, good, because this ain't going to work where I was at. And it was a crazy place because, just like I said with that, but it was also the pressure you were under, and just, we don't really. Funny thing is here is you don't really get yelled at. You might have the door, "Hey, can you shut that door?" And it's like, "Hey, I think we could do better." Yeah. And that was always here's the problem.
I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed.
Yeah, here's the problem. I think we could do better, which is an interesting way to run a company, because I know there's heat and air places where you get just chewed out for everything. And so we've always kind of had that perspective of, hey, we'd rather, I don't know, maybe somebody else could say what it's actually.
We try to praise in public, and then correct in private.
But even in the correction, it's not like you're berating someone or anything. That's not anything. But like you can just have that conversation with people.
Yeah. Well, it goes back to kind of what you were saying too, of like how our dad Darren, how he handles not even just the business, but just parenting in general. Like just being a leader. It's that the humanizing everyone, understanding that everyone at their core, deserves to be treated with respect. And so at no point in time, should a customer yell at one of our CSRs or dispatchers, or one of us yell at each other, because that's at the basis. This is a business. This is a job. This isn't life and death scenario. We're not screaming that the enemy's rushing over the hill. It's a job. And so like the yelling and screaming, it's easy to throw all your leadership capital down, and you lose a ton of respect that way too. Like if you don't reserve yourself and keep control of your emotions, you can burn a lot of bridges really quickly.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll even say, just even in the heat of the moment, I've learned a lot from your dad. I learned a lot from Darren Yarbrough. Mostly just how he parents you guys. I watch him and how he engages with you guys as his sons, but also his employees. And even in the heat of the moment, the craziest things could happen. And I've heard him say, "Okay, what did we learn? What'd you learn from this?" And it's like, instead of him getting angry, it's like, this is a lesson. So the other day, my son fell off of a chair, and he's too young to really learn from it, I think. But I said that out loud. I was like, "Okay, bud, what'd you learn?" And so I'm hoping that he will no longer do that. So I'm actively implementing Darren's management style, parenting style in real time. So
Yeah.
I think it's been good for us, and that's where, I came in this pretty young, being, let's see, I was 19 when I started here, and then I had my license by the time I was 20. So was I 21? Either way, it was, I was pretty young, and that's what's crazy is I had apprentices that were older than me, and I had a lot of times where I'd go to a homeowner and I'd say something, and some people, it's not like you pull out your journeyman card once you get there.
Yeah.
You kind of just introduce yourself and all that kind of stuff. But you tell a homeowner something, and being so young, people would literally go, okay, now he said this, and your apprentice would be like, I mean, he's the boss. I don't know where to go. And it was like, okay, fine, go ask him. I don't mind you go and ask him. But it always was a deal. And I was always, man, I know I'm a lot bigger than what I used to, but I used to be really skinny. And that's where I'd go in all the holes and anything like that. But that's where I think that they got the deal as I was this kind of young kid. And here I was taking on a lot of responsibility for my age.
I think that's something that, like, all of us, at the table went through with the company at some point, was just because all of us, we started working too young as well. And it was always that, like, you're not old enough to be doing this. What are you doing? Like, I need to talk to your boss. It's that, like, that you're too young thing. Whereas I think that's part of, working for the solopreneur. The company is, for the most part, always going to stay younger than the entrepreneur. And so just through the years our average age is still we're like 26, 27, so our average age in the company is still really young. And so I'm sure a lot of our techs still get that, a lot of our maintenance techs and young service techs get that. And so it's that thing where you got to handle it with enough grace to be, to be almost self-deprecating to the customer. Like, yeah, I know.
Yes.
That's where.
Yeah, and I feel like sometimes the age.
Even in our install department, we've got some really young guys over there too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like over time the age kind of rises too. It's like people want you to be older, though. Like as time has progressed, it's like I want you. I wanted you to be it's like 20. All right, I really want you to be 22. No, I really want you to be 25. I really want you to have a lot more experience, and it's so interesting. It's like, no, I want you to be skilled. I don't care how old you are.
Yeah.
So
So when you came back, when you left and came back, did you hop into install again, or what was the transition like from you to like the service technician?
Yeah.
So what did that look like?
Whenever I came back, we were doing a lot of change outs, a lot more than what we did, and a lot of commercial work. I mean, that was pretty much our bread and butter, was commercial work and residential change outs. And so with that, I jumped right into the residential change out, because like I said, I always liked residential. And I always liked residential because I wasn't there for long periods of time. You get on a big commercial job and you're there for 3 months, 4 months. That's a big responsibility. And it was easier for me to go, this is what I need to get done this day. So residential change outs really paired off nice with that kind of lifestyle. And I did that so all in all, in my residential times, from the apprentice to the time I moved to service, I was just in install. So that was 10 years. And then I was getting to the point where I was about tired of doing change outs. It gets to 10 years of doing change outs is pretty hard on the body.
Yeah.
And now I look back and it's not as bad, but back then it was not as, and I was learning a lot of the technical skills that I needed, like I wasn't calling our service manager as much to ask him questions, and there was things that I was diagnosing myself. And so I felt like I wanted that next step of a challenge. And so I didn't really even ask for it. I was just, one day I know that some things were going to get changed around. The guy that I did most of our residential install change outs for, he was going to retire and move out to Godibo, and somebody was going to step in. So lots of things were moving around, and that's at the time where Darren pulled me in and said, "Hey, do you want to go to service?" And I said, "Yeah, heck yeah, I've been wanting to do that for a while now, but I didn't want to say anything." And so I got to move over there, and moving to service was a lot. It was almost like starting a new job because even though, I mean, you just knew the people. That was the only difference but you're in a totally different
Your
field.
responsibilities changed completely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I went from being, like top residential install tech to here I am, a service tech, and I'm going, I have no clue. I'm going to have to interact with people differently and stuff like that. You interact with people all the time whenever you're doing install, but it's a different kind of interaction, I feel like. Because now, with ours, you don't even ask for, I know sometimes it changes, but for the most part, you didn't even ask for, hey, can y'all, here's the bill, and all that kind of stuff. So now I'm going to be asking for money. So that was a big deal. Like, I'm going to give these bills to these people and I got to collect and I had never had, up until 2017, I didn't even have a computer at my house. And so I had, that's why I took this job, is because I didn't have to work on computers, which is kind of
And
funny.
now all he does is work on.
Yeah. So we had a tablet, and I had to figure out how to use this tablet and do all these other things that I'm not used to doing.
So were we on, whenever you switched over at the service, were we already on ACA 1 as the dispatch program?
I think we had just started it
Oh man, what a terrible time.
because at that time we were carrying around paper tickets. So
Yeah.
I had to learn how to do paper tickets and this computer program
Yeah.
at the
Yes.
same time.
Yes.
On a device I'd never.
What year was this? Do you know?
This would have been 2000, probably about 2017. No, so
No, it was earlier than that because I
it
think
was 2005. It was 2005 that I started. And I was in
10 years
residential
later.
for 10
so-
years.
so
So
it's-
2015.
okay, that's what I thought. So you and I, because you and I, so after college, and really in between, in between semesters, like during the summertime, we'd work. Tucker and I we'd work a ton of service,
Yep.
and so I was in that. So I was doing
Yeah.
service around the same time that you were. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
you were there.
You lose perspective.
You lose perspective because in my mind, I'm like, Keith knows everything.
He's been here for forever.
He's been.
No, I mean,
So-
I think you were in service. I think
Yeah.
you just started before I came over.
And
Right.
from Keith's perspective, he's like, these punk kids.
No. Actually, I've told a lot of people. I said, a lot of people have, there's all kinds of people that say things about, kids taking over a business. I have friends in Mississippi that they own a business, and when their son kind of started taking over the business, you would have heard all kinds of horrible things, and you kind of hear that chatter around this area too. But I said, if you're going to have people take over, I would rather have y'all take over. Let's have the boys take over. Of course, we grew up working
Yeah.
together. I mean, y'all were out in the yard and all that kind of stuff. So it wasn't like y'all weren't doing this stuff too.
Yeah.
It was always kind of a what is going to happen after Darren gets too old.
Yeah.
Because we all liked working here at Yarbrough Sons, but it was like, what's going to happen after Darren decides, well, I'm ready to step down. And so you're going, well, am I going to have a career after that? Am I going to have to go find some other one of these places where I'm going to get yelled at all the time?
Yeah.
Or,
And that succession plan really wasn't set in stone until like 2017.
Yeah.
Late 2017 really
Yeah.
was when that kind of got set in stone. So yeah, I guess that can cause some discomfort.
well, it was nice when Kolby came, because then when Kolby came, you had okay, maybe this is going to be, because see, I talked to your dad back in, I think it was back when I first got started. Hold on.
But it is, that clear path.
Yeah. When I first got started, we had a conversation with your dad one time at a job, and we were going, so what are your kids going to do in the future? And he goes, I don't know. I really want them to go to college because I really don't want them doing anything there. Okay. And I was like, oh my goodness.
That's
like,
the talk I got when I was 13.
okay. Yeah. That'd probably been about the same time then. Yeah. Because I don't think he was necessarily against
He probably
you.
had that conversation with Will the night before.
Yeah, well, it was interesting because we were all kind of going, well, it'd be nice if somebody took, like, there was some kind of future here, because what's going to happen in the future. So it all worked out pretty well, but it was always kind of a guess. And so I was pretty relieved when Kolby came over, and then when Tucker started doing the working as a service tech, that was pretty nice. That okay, maybe he's gonna, and talking to him whenever he was working, it sounded like he was kind of on that path of he was going to come back and work here. So it really worked out pretty well.
Yeah. And I think something too that helped, especially with you guys, you, Swaim, Mac, Danny, Jeremy, the management that has been here for forever, has you guys, not only did we grow up together in a sense, but we were here working, in the scrapyard during the summers, crawling in attics or doing service stuff. So it wasn't
a lot of sweat equity.
It wasn't just a white knight riding in and just riding into an office job. It was we're out here scrapping for every day of the summer. There is no summer break. Your summer break is dealing with compressors.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you probably scrapped better than some of us did. All I remember is whenever I scrapped, I was like, how much PTO time do I have that I can go ahead and just take off, because I do not want to do this
How much can I burn?
Yeah, it was about midsummer of scrapping. You're going, okay. And Cody does the scrapping out. He does a great job. Yeah.
I couldn't imagine
Yeah.
doing just scrapping. That's
it's
work.
hard. It's hard work.
So you ran service from 2015 till what year did you step over into your current role? Was that 21?
21.
Okay, so
Yes.
six years of service.
Yeah, and service is a lot different than what it was. Like that's where I don't have a lot of sympathy for the guys that are in service now. Sometimes they complain about things, and I'm like, "What are you complaining about? Y'all have it like better than we ever had it." When I said, when I came over to service, it was 4 of us because Kolby was in there, and right after that, I mean, it wasn't too far after that, Kolby moved over into sales.
Yeah.
And so there was just 3 of us. And a service and our service manager. But for the most part, it was 3 of us running around, and it seemed like we were running around with like chickens with their heads cut off.
Yeah,
I mean,
it
we
felt
were
like that
everywhere.
before I left service.
Yeah, it was. That we always had, but we were so busy. We were kind of, I guess, we were
Understaffed.
in the service
In the
department.
service,
because we had our install. We had quite a few.
I think we had probably 6 crews at that time.
Yeah,
probably.
Yeah.
and so those people were going to stay busy, and only stay busy by the service just really staying busy.
And the clients, I think at that point, the clientele of Yarbrough started, especially on the commercial side, and residential was, our residential side didn't really start picking up until I'll probably say 2018.
Yeah,
But at that moment where we were in service, we were just trying to keep up with all of the clientele. Like every person was a VIP because they knew Dad, they knew Darren, they had worked and used this before, and there was just 4 of us at the time, which is wild.
I remember always having the conversation with Swaim, for who's our service manager now. Was for 2 summers in a row. Whenever I came in, it was always the first thing he'd say to me is, "Tucker, I'm glad you're back. I'm glad you're back."
yeah.
Just another body to throw at the fray.
Yeah, we have. Yeah, it was really great. I mean, the thing is, like, we were so busy. But here's the thing: is we were doing all kinds of different. We were doing refrigeration.
Yeah.
We were doing ice machines. And we were working on pretty much whatever job we could get, which was crazy because we were way too busy to have those jobs. But it was just you go do whatever you could do, which was great because I learned all kinds of things working on all kinds of different units. So it kind of goes the same aspect as whenever I started in install. It was just you work on a whole plethora of all kinds of things, just everything you could.
And that's one thing too. If like we're talking about just seeing how the industry changes with you, but like as a business, we went from the time that you started, we were $1 or $2 million shop to now we're 11, we're 10.7 or 8. And so just the size and scope of the business has 10x'd in the time that you've been here. So not only just like how the world of HVAC has changed specifically as far as technology is concerned, but just like what we do as a company is entirely different because we now have to have that specialization, and like we've adopted and changed, and with the goal and growth mindset of trying to push the business forward. And so whenever you stepped over into the management role that you're in, to give a preface to, the listeners out there, we belong to Service Nation Alliance. We're part of a nationwide best practices group, and so a lot of times we rob and duplicate ideas from each other, and so we talk to companies from all over the nation once a week and just steal the best ideas and try to implement them. And one of the things that we also do is we're relatively unorthodox when it comes to implementation of management and putting people in specific roles. Bryce, who's our producer, but also is our marketing director at Yarbrough Sons. At the time, we were a $8-9 million company when he stepped in, and to have a marketing director at that size of company is, it's a stretch. But for us, because of where we wanted to go, we implemented. With Keith's role as a quality and production management, I still, whenever I share what we do with your seat and what you do as a manager, there aren't many people who do what you guys do, specifically what you do at other companies. And so give us kind of an overview of your current job, what you're doing, what role you stepped into, and what that looks like in today's business.
Well, first, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Have you ever met any company that has a role like mine?
No, I have
I was
one.
just thinking that. I was going to say,
Okay.
where,
One.
who?
So it is Eagle Pipe and Plumbing up in Oregon.
All right, so Keith, I have never met a company.
Yeah.
I
they don't
always have a hard time explaining it because,
Yeah.
well, but what do you do?
And they don't call it, so quality and production is the seat that we call you. They call it their assurance manager.
Okay.
And so it's that same, they took their most skilled pipe fitter and then made that their assurance guy.
Yeah, and I know a lot of this comes down to, this is stuff that Darren was wanting for a long time, because that's one thing. Whenever Mac moved into install manager, well, he's just manager, because at that time he was taking care of service and install. But at that time, he really wanted Mac to just be able to go and look at the jobs afterwards. Nothing big, but just go double check things. Well, I mean, if you've ever been in an install management position, you don't have a whole lot of time for that. You're doing a lot, because Mac does a lot every day, and especially then he was doing service too. There was no way he could have done all that, and so I think Darren had put it off for time after time after time, and he finally moved to a position where he said, "Hey, I like these things to be done. Let's put somebody in this field." And so when I moved in here, we didn't have a role for. I mean, we had ideas of, this is what we want you to do, and then also we'd like you to kind of do some other things too and build up things. So it was real fun to kind of build this position into what I want it to be. I guess, I mean, there's things I do I don't like, but that's with any kind of deal. There's things
sure.
I gotta pull in there, but there's one thing that we all want it to be is go out there and on those installs, not only do you talk to those customers and see what issues they had, but you also fix issues that your guys might have done, that you're going out there and you're throwing a unit together. There's a lot of times where you can forget something or something gets missed, and they're usually easy things. I had one just yesterday that the guys called me when they were doing it, and they said, "Hey, I got this thermostat. I don't have another one on my truck. This one has a black line through it. And what do you want me to do about it?" And it was 4:30 at that time. So, I mean, it's kind of like, well, just, if it's working, then just go ahead and it work, and we'll go back on the quality check and we'll change out that thermostat. It won't take but 2 seconds. So it gives us that opportunity to fix little things that we'd like to do. And I think, I've always had this belief, and I know the industry would say the same thing, is like, I don't care what kind of brand you put in, I'd rather you put in a unit installed correctly. So the better we can do an install, the longer that unit's going to last. So we've always kind of had that philosophy. And so making sure that the guys also hone in their skills. A lot of the things that I catch the guys on are little things. We've had, I don't know what it is about this year, we've had flues be the issue. Like we've had straps on flues, but then roofers have came in and redone it, and then they broke our flues. And so we've had, looking at ways to mitigate that issue to where I'm not having some kind of problem with a roofer blaming me for, well, you just didn't install it right, because that seems to happen a lot. But that's where we just see those little things, and we just get to slowly improve things over time, which I'm glad we have the people we have today, because the installers really take care of business. So that's where it's always been kind of nice to go over there and just look at theirs. So that's one role of mine, is just looking over installs. And with the amount of installs I've done over the years, I know what needs to be done and not done. I've had units that are still running to this day that I've installed that we didn't have very many problems with. So that was a good position for me to take it. And then the other one is all the service techs. I always, they'll go on calls, and I go through those calls, and I literally call all those. I literally call those people. I don't call everybody, because there's just not enough time.
We'll triage it to a dollar amount.
Yeah.
We try to get it to where it's half the time. I mean, there's a lot of times I'm getting pulled away to do other things. I'm out in the field quite a bit.
It's basically getting a heat check on how we're doing, what the customer's overall
Yeah.
pulse is like.
So in the quality production seat at Yarbroughs, what would you say would be some of your, if you could summarize, what would be some of your biggest challenges?
Whether that be with customers or or internal.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest challenge I think with any of it is just training, because the more we can get training done to the guys, and the more it sticks in their head, which I think training is one of the hardest things you can do, because you're dealing with another person. I grew up, my mom is a teacher, my grandma was a teacher, but I come from a big family of teaching, and so that lends well to me training, because that's one of my roles, is actually training the guys. And that lends a lot good to training the guys, but it's the whole point that the guys have got to want to learn. And we've gone into, especially after COVID, we've gone into a service industry that, for one, I think we have more training than we ever had before, but it's the will to want to learn. And I think just if most people learned, if you went into any of these trades and you just want to have that attitude of learning a little bit, you would go so far. It's not even compared, because we've always kind of been an industry of guys that, what's the word for the old? They're just old guys that don't want to, I've done this for 30 years, and I've been in the perspective, I've always been wanting to learn more. And so that's where the younger guys that we have come in, that's where they lend themselves pretty good, because they want to learn that, because they don't know what a lot of those old timers have been doing for all this time.
Now you're the old guy.
It's easy. Well, it's easier to change a new guy than somebody who's been here for a while, because the old guy I've done it this way for years. I understand. We in the industry came to the same thing of, we came into the same thing with the industry as, I went from being in R22, where everything we were installing was R22, to 410A. And just the change of installs, of how you had to install it, was major, because I got to say, we were doing things like not pulling vacuums and not doing all this kind of stuff that just kind of makes me cringe nowadays.
It makes me have a panic attack.
Yeah. So practices that were just not great. It's kind of like whenever you learn to flow with nitrogen, when you're brazing, you go, why didn't I do this all the time? Like I was doing a horrible thing. So you kind of go to a new perspective, but there's a lot of guys, they still have that old perspective of, we didn't do this before, why do we have to do it now? Because there's a difference.
I had a quick question. So I know we're trying really hard at Yarbrough Sons to instill a positive culture, a positive work culture, one that wants to learn. You were talking about that willingness to learn. This is for everyone at the table, but what do you guys feel like has been the biggest change in that we've been able to, it's really hard to find people who have that willingness, and but what are we doing when we foster? How do we foster that willingness to learn? From your management position, how are you handling that, Keith?
I mean, the biggest thing we do is we work as a team. I say I do the training, but it comes down to there's not too many things that I don't run by either Tucker or Swain or Mac and say, hey, this is what I'm kind of wanting to do. How do you feel about this? So we kind of have come to everything needs to be to our standard. And that's where my role leads to is there's standard for everything. I know right now Steven's building up kind of I don't know if you want to call it a class or
It's like the onboarding packets.
Onboarding package is the best way to say it for all the new maintenance techs. And Steven's not even our maintenance manager, but we all kind of work as this team of trying to make these guys better. And we've done a lot of different things just to see what would hit. But one of the big things is just having those weekly meetings to where we do soft skills and we do technical training on. So 2 days a week we get to do some training with our service techs, and every 2 weeks we get on 1 day we do for the install. And so those things have, like I said, everything takes a long time to move, but you can definitely see if you look over the years, the amount of things that we've changed the way we do things.
I would say just as in mine and Will's seat, whenever you jumped over to quality production, you provided us with accountability for whenever we sell the job, which is huge. And so I remember a conversation that you and I had. It was probably start of 2021 or at the end of 2021 and going into 2022. No, sorry, 2022, and then really kind of implemented it in 2023, which was airflow. And so really, and basically you're like, hey Kolby, we've been having. And I asked you, was like, hey, if is there anything that I'm missing? Is there anything that I need to do a better job at? And you're like, man, we're having high static pressure on all of these new systems, and we need to figure out how to get those in. And I was like, so what's the fix? And you're like, well, we probably need to increase the return air on most of these systems that we're installing. And so you and I sat down and we kind of did you kind of showed me some easy math to kind of figure out static pressure. And I was like, okay, well, that makes a ton of sense. And so implement that in 2023. And then going into 2024, and so you provided us with accountability on how can we do better? Because at the end of the day, if I'm not communicating that to the homeowner, and we're not properly charging for it, then it's like we're doing it for free, and you're having to go back and fix a lot of stuff. And it's like that's not the goal of the job. It's rather you provide us with accountability.
Oh yeah.
And so, which I'm very appreciative for.
Which is, that's why as much as I understand, a lot of companies cannot have what we have. They don't have they're not as big as we can, so it would be hard for somebody to go back to every job. But really,
Right.
I guess if you put it in your budget for that, you could, but you would have to have somebody that would be more like that's their part-time role. I guess that is still part-time role because I'm not technically doing it every day.
Eventually, I think it'll be a split. Like eventually, as we add more, like there will be a split in like the quality and production side, just because you're going to have somebody who's just pulsing the service team and somebody who's just pulsing the install teams.
Yeah, so it's really, you could have somebody, whether it be if you could get one of your managers to do that. But that's one thing that we found was as I was going out and looking at all these units and seeing what can we do better is ductwork. And I've always kind of known that ductwork was bad because, I think they say 80% of all ductwork is undersized.
Yeah.
So there's an issue.
80% of the jobs I go to, I'm doing
Yeah.
I think that's the Energy Star standard. It's like 80% of new construction houses have airflow problems from the day they're done.
Yeah. In fact, that's a big topic on all kinds of different social medias. They all talk about.
Everyone's an expert.
Yeah. Well, but they all talk about the airflow problems, and I've seen tons of guys complain about. There's this brand new $500,000 house, and we're gonna have to do thousands of dollars to fix their airflow issues on their house because it won't cool right.
Yes.
I don't know what episode we're on of Blue Collar Bros, but I think I've said it every episode. In that $500,000 house, it's because air conditioning isn't sexy, so people don't care about it.
No,
Hey, well, we know that for a fact because
yes.
And something else I think that has helped us as far as to touch back on your question, Bryce, of learning is I think one, making room for it. is a big deal. Is paying your team to actually learn. I think all too often as managers, owners, leaders in companies are like, we'll show up early and we're going to do a class. And at a lot of places it's unpaid. And it's, that is an unreasonable expectation. If you're a leader or manager in your company, you need to make room and pay your team to come learn. And so I think one, making room for it, but then two, is vision alignment within the ownership and management team, is understanding what the goal is. It's, without that, if the goal is we're just here for a job and we're just, we just want to do the same thing next year, we want to be the same size next year, as long as we don't shrink, we're good. Versus, no, we want to be the biggest company in Oklahoma. Like, we want to be the place where people come to work. We want Yarbrough Sons to be so attractive that people opt not to start their own businesses because it makes more financial sense to come work for us. And so that's the vision alignment that we have with you guys in the management seats of, hey, we're trying to build something that is bigger than all of us, so that all of us are more successful. And so I think that allows, when that becomes the goal, you got to be a really smart team.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's where we all work together, and that's the great thing is I literally just went to Kolby and said, hey, this is my static pressure, and I didn't realize it was this bad. You don't think about it until you get out there and look at it. But seeing all these jobs, I was going, okay, we got airflow problems. So that was always a good thing that we could do that and move into that. And there's been other things that the great thing about this role is I kind of built it to the way I want. So I saw issues on the service side of callbacks, and I had a lot of guys. Callbacks is always going to be there. And I think some of the guys think that somehow they can stop that. You're always going to have callbacks. I hate to tell them that.
But the attitude we need is people who believe that they can stop callbacks.
And so I said, we don't have a good way of measuring, kind of we had some ways of looking at our callbacks, but there was a lot of guys complaining like, I'm going to all these people's callbacks, and so I didn't make any money I didn't bring any money to the company because I had to go back on all callbacks today. And you're going, okay, like what's our actual ratio on all this? And so at that time I started developing and like I said, I didn't do any computers things before this. And so now I'm over here mixing with Excel and trying to figure out stuff I had never even touched before.
I made one Google form for Keith, and then now he's a Google form and Google Sheets expert. We're making things happen.
Yeah, so I mean, it just came down to, and that's where it's always you have to learn something new. And
and it's making me chuckle because I was a part of the conversation with you whenever we put you in your seat. It was I remember it was in March, and Dad and I were having that conversation of prior to summer. Okay, here we go, and we brought you in and had the talk of putting you in a production and quality management seat. It was something that we'd been cooking for a year or two. And it's funny that you're saying I've built it to what I want. Is I feel like just this is my second, two of my management hires. Actually, I kind of said this to Philip as well. So our maintenance manager. And I said it to Bryce before I brought him in, which was, I don't really know fully what it looks like, but here's about 40% of what needs to happen.
And I'm just going to say that's like kind of terrifying coming in. It was like, okay, so we're just kind of winging it. We're going to figure this thing out. Yeah. But hey, you know what? We've put, everyone has been put to work.
Yes. Yeah. We're not wasting much time.
But I mean, that's where it goes. That's one of the, I'm glad you put me in here, but the amount of trust it took to put somebody in. Did you know I didn't know how to work a computer really before?
Nope, not at all.
That's a good thing. See, I got all these kind of skills. Yeah.
Well, it's it was one of those deals though where I think for other business leaders, you have to step out on that limb. Like I think all too often we want this like nice bow. We want to be able to say, all right, Bryce, marketing director, here is 100% of what it is we need you to do. And, Keith, quality production, here is 100% of the role we need you to fulfill. And that might work in like a corporate setting where the job has already been done. Mm-hmm. But as you're building a company, like as business leaders, managers, owners, you have to take that leap of faith and be willing to say, I don't know what it looks like right now, but here's most of what we need done.
Well, and I just want to say also, I think putting someone in a position as scary as that can be of saying like, hey, I got 40% of your job figured out. The rest of it, we're just going to kind of spearhead it. We don't have a playbook on this at all. I think that's actually a benefit in a lot of ways for management positions because it allows you to play to your strengths. You're not fitting into a role that was developed for you. It's like me coming in, I got to start playing to my strengths immediately because I was like, okay, I know what I'm good at. I know what I can do to help the company the best way I know how. And I think that's the way that a lot of these management positions have been fulfilled is just saying like, hey, we don't have a perfect box to put you in, but we're going to play off of your strengths. So,
Gosh. Yeah.
Well,
Sorry, go ahead.
Do you not think that heat and air, I mean, just HVAC and general companies come to that? Because there's a lot of people that I guess I hadn't been to enough companies to know, but it seems like to me it would be hard going somewhere else just because now I got to learn their way of doing things. And so I know that when I left for 4 months going over there, they did things a way different. And you had maybe this guy that shows you this way and this guy that shows this way. So there's no set in stone. Do you think that hurts the industry of why people, it's a lot easier to go to a corporate job to where everything's structured to whereas ours is not, no company's the same structured.
Yeah. I think it's such a blend I've told customers this before too. I said, HVAC is such a blend of hard and soft science because it's like, the pressures, the static pressure, airflow, all this kind of stuff, tonnages, BTUs, all this stuff, like that's hard science. Like I can manipulate numbers and make things work a certain way and put air in certain places that I get so much cubic feet of air per square foot in this area. That's like hard science. The soft science is like, well, I'm too cold.
The soft science is preference.
Yeah,
it's
so,
preference.
So it's
How do you
where,
feel?
It's where that soft science comes in. Is then companies develop their own ways of doing things. It was like, well, I don't put 8-inch ducts in bedrooms because people get too cold. And you're like, well, I mean, okay, but and so that's where it's kind of
we're part thermodynamic experts, part home therapists.
yeah, exactly. It's such a blend. But, okay,
Instead
so
of comfort
I've got
advisor,
a-
we need to be comfort therapists.
There you go. I've got a question for Keith, and it's kind of like two questions that can possibly be related. So I'm going to package them together.
Okay.
But then again, they might not be related. So, all right. So what is, like, if you were to summarize something that's like your proudest achievement or something that you've done that you're like, hey, I'm actually really proud of this. And then the most memorable thing. So those two might be two different things, but they could be the same thing. And so that's why I wanted to package them together. So you can split them apart or put them together, however you want to do that.
Well,
But
now you're making me think
I
that's
know, yeah,
some
yeah,
big
yeah,
things.
yeah.
So
and it really, maybe it's not like the most proud, or maybe just something that you are proud of. And so, just
I don't know. I know one thing that I talk about all the time is we had an issue. We've always had a pretty good on-call schedule. I think. I mean, it's been for the since I even went into service. It's probably why I say this because that back then there was a little bit of problems, but it's the best on-call schedule that you could have because you don't work all week. A lot of companies will go all week, and a lot of companies will be 24 hours. Whereas Darren has always set it up to be just 8 to 8, and so you're having that time where you get home to your family. Maybe it's kind of late in bedtime, but at least you're there whenever it's bedtime. So that was always great because we could do Monday, Tuesday, and then Thursday, Friday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So Wednesday and Thursday, you would have a little bit of a break to make sure that you could do some things around the house.
Yeah.
So that was always nice. The problem with it is that it was kind of random. Like you might be Monday, Tuesday this time, and then it might be the next week you're during the weekend, and then you might be Thursday. So it was just random when those days hit. And I said it would be really nice if you could have a little bit more perspective of when you're going to be on call. And so I know we had some guys that complained about it because they go, I can't keep track of when I'm on call and not on call, because it was such hard to look at a schedule and know that kind of stuff. So I've been toying with it since I was in service, and I said, this doesn't make any sense, but I don't think that anybody would like it, because then you would be on call for pretty much 2 weeks, but you would have gaps in between. But I said, this would be smarter for everybody. It would be a better setup. I said, why don't we do it this way?
Yeah.
And that's where everybody came in, and we brought it to the guys, and they all agreed. And it's been great because now everybody kind of has a better idea of when they're on call. And I know that it's hard before, because I had times where I would call up there and say, hey, I'm done with this job. I guess go ahead and head home. And they'd go, no, you have another one. And we're like, no, God, let the guy on call go. I'm tired. It's almost 5 o'clock. I want to go home. Yeah. And they would go, you are the guy on call. And you're like, oh, well.
You are that guy.
I guess that's officially me problem.
Yes. So that's one thing I was really happy with, that we changed up to where it seems like it's more reasonable for the guys. And I haven't heard maybe they just don't complain to me anymore. But I have not heard our guys complain about how it's structured. But with that, we brought back the Monday off after your
weekend on.
The week after Monday off when you're on call for the week. This is hard to say how it is, but that was great too. And I don't know anybody in the industry that's doing anything like that.
Yeah.
So
basically we give our guys a Monday. So if they've got a long on-call schedule during the weekend, then they get that following Monday.
Yeah,
they can take that off.
Yeah,
and so
it's an offer. It's one of those deals which we want to try to put our team back in charge of their weekend. And we understand that, like, asking someone to be on call, it's not a fun deal, but it comes with the job. And so it was kind of birthed out of we tried some unique scheduling that other companies in the service nation that we talk to are successful at, which is the 4 on 4 off style. And we didn't have enough traction on, really specifically on Sundays, because that's one deal that unless you are a VIP, we try not to do hardly anything on Sundays. That way our team has that day to spend with their family. And so giving that Monday, the weekend following their on call, is trying to give their Saturday back from whenever they were on call. And so it's in the same vein of giving our whole team the opportunity at a good night's sleep. It's that in that same vein of, like, hey, we want you to have as much time as possible.
Yeah. All right, Keith, this is the final question. What would you say to your 18-year-old self whenever you joined Yarbroughs? Any recommendations you would make for yourself?
it would be the same thing I already. You need to bulk up, because you're going to have to go into a lot of holes.
Where do I just have that extra cheeseburger?
No, I will say I'm glad I'm not. Having the plumbing department come on makes me happy I didn't go into plumbing, because they crawl under a lot of houses. That's really, the gist of it. I would tell them to learn things faster, because I think I don't know if I would have gone any faster through things if I didn't, but that's the one thing, is just to learn things and keep learning. And maybe pick up on skills that I didn't want to learn at the time. Like I said, I didn't want to do computers, and I was done, didn't want to go to college and all that kind of stuff. If I would have gone back, I'd probably tell myself, you might want to pick up on some of those skills that you wouldn't think you would need. And the same thing goes in heat and air. I would suggest that to anybody that's getting into the trades, or who's been into the trades you could be in there for 30 years, is pick up new skills, There's tons of opportunity to learn out there in today's world. We have more knowledge. Of course, there's a lot of false information too, but there is plenty of people that you can follow that on social media stuff that has all kinds of information for you to learn to get better skilled at what you do. And so
take learning more seriously for sure.
Yeah. That's a big deal.
Any final thoughts, guys? Anything else we got
Keith,
going
final
on?
thoughts?
No, nothing.
No.
Well,
Super simple.
Keith, we appreciate you taking the time this morning to jump on with us and kind of share your perspective on your walk through the trades, your walk through Yarbrough Sons, helping us grow this company. You are a valued member of our team. We look forward to working with you for many more years, my friend. So,
Thanks,
guys, be sure, like, subscribe, leave us a comment. We'll do our best to get back with you. We'll catch you next time. Let's get out of here.
See ya.